Fighting out of the blue corner, giving up for Darren Claybay.
Well, he had a funny way of, he was very direct, he was very gruff, and he didn't give like very deep technical. He was the guy like the other trainer, all right, listen, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to turn them, you got to twist, you got to do this, and then you'd look at Duke and he'd go, throw punches, you got to throw punches. He spent as much time training the kids, getting kids out of jail, talking to the judge about them, picking up stuff off the street to clean up and give them. So when people say, yeah, I know Johnny Duke from Bellevue Square, a lot of times they're not talking about the boxing.
I don't know. I think without Duke being there, I probably wouldn't have challenged myself as much. I qualified for the National Golden Gloves, and at the same time, I qualified for the World Championships. So I was torn because I really, in the area, the Golden Gloves was everything, and I asked him, I said, well, what do you think? Should I go to the Worlds or should I go to the Golden Gloves? And Duke said, nah, you go to the Worlds, they'll kill you over there. They'll kill you. Now, I didn't know he was challenging me. He wanted me to go to the Worlds. So he used that reverse psychology to make me to say, if you go, you're not going to do well. I went over there and I just kept thinking about what he said. Ended up, capturing a bronze medal for the country. So
they have a special one-of-a-kind championship bout. Johnny Duke, Western New England Golden Gloves Championship T-shirt. One shirt is $15, but someone at your house is going to want one, so buy two.
I can honestly say that without Johnny Duke's influence, I probably wouldn't have gone to college. I wouldn't have taken the path I took. You looked at his face and you knew he'd been around. There were scars, there were marks. However, at the end of the day, you knew that Johnny Duke had the biggest heart of anybody I had ever seen. As a City of Hartford employee, he had access to a lot of free tickets to a lot of events. And Duke would come in with all these tickets and he would say, guys, come here, come on. All right, listen to me. This hockey team, these Hartford Whalers, listen to me. They called me up. They need a bunch of fighters in the audience, kind of to give the thing a little bit of pizzazz, you know what I mean? So here's what we're gonna do. I need, and he'd count every guy in the room, I need 12 guys to come down with me to the Hartford Whalers. So we would go to hockey games, we would go to the circus, we would go to everything. And the remarkable thing about this story is that Johnny did that without making us feel poor. We didn't feel underprivileged. We felt like we were doing everybody a favor.
Absolutely love seeing the fighters. And it's nice to see the joy and the trophies coming to them.
Well, I think there was great admiration for his mom, that she was a single mom, and his father was, from my understanding, was a womanizer, and my grandmother was a very strong-willed woman.
I really think my grandmother, she was also had qualities of my dad in the sense that my dad used to bring home people that were to her house. People he met that needed a meal or didn't have a place to stay. He taught us just compassion and loyalty, and it meant nothing to us to be a kid and have children come up and my mother would cook 2 pounds of pasta instead of 1 pound.
To me, he was always my grandfather. I never saw him as Johnny Duke. Yeah, I knew he was a boxer, but I was little, so he was just grandpa. Having such a respect and understanding for other people and other cultures and people who are different, and not to judge someone, not to be cliche, but by their cover, judge a book by their cover, because looking at him, people could have judged him.
I remember they used to say, like during the 60s, they said he was the only white guy that could go into Bellevue Square and have no trouble.
Johnny, just the last couple of weeks, I'm looking at his picture, and it brings tears to my eyes. It's like right now I'm holding back. He was a father. I had a father that worked second shift. It wasn't really around. And Duke, when I took time and look at it, I spent most of my life with Duke. Duke was a character too. The little kids would come into the gym and Duke would be sitting at his desk. Come here, you want to be a fighter? And the little kid would say, yeah, I want to be a fighter. The Duke would say, okay, well, let me see. Put your hand up here on the table. Duke would reach in the drawer and get a hammer with the nail.
And he'll look at you and he said, turn your head around.
And the kid would put his hand up there and Duke hit the table.
And he'll bang on the desk. If you jumped, I mean, you know, he said you was afraid of it. But if you stood there, he said you were tough.
He is maybe the only man on this planet that could affect such change on so many people. And again, you know, I'm a boxing coach myself, and what I try to do is I try to emulate Johnny Duke. I try not just to teach people how to fight, but I want to teach people how to live.
When I moved into Bellevue Square, that 1978, when I moved in here, and that's when Jose introduced me to Johnny Duke. So he wanted to meet my mother. So he came over to the house. I introduced him to my mother. You know, he walked around the apartment. He went to my room. He said, "Where are you sleeping at?" I said, "Duke, I'm sleeping right there." He said, "Where?" "Right there in the corner." He looked at me. He said, "I'll be back in an hour." An hour later, he came. He beat the horn. Called me down. He said, "I want you to go back to my truck and help me out." I said, "With what?" He said, "Oh, I got you a bed." I said, "Oh, you know."
He really demonstrated humanity in general, and compassion and love. And I think that the world needs a little bit more of that in every day.
We would make the trek down to Bellevue Square Boys Club. Wasn't big, wasn't pretty, but that's where Duke was, so it didn't matter.
I decided to do this when he passed away just because of, you know, most people think it's because of the boxing and all that, but it's not really the boxing, as most of these people here can tell you.
He's on TV, he's on people's videos. I mean, people stop us if they know it's us and we participate in the boxing world. You know, he's still alive, even though he's not here. You miss the voice, you miss the person, but the legend will go on forever.
A Golden Glover may be a little fellow of 4 feet 9 or a giant of 6 feet 5. He is a young man alone in the ring with his opponent, with no one to run interference for him and no one to whom he could pass the ball when the going gets rough. He is a type of a fellow who extends every ounce of energy in the ring for a medal or a trophy instead of fighting for cash. He is a youth searching for a rainbow to seek, to touch, to gasp, and to keep. This, my friends, is a Golden Glover.